other thing is the way the approach and the justification. Um, it was an accident. It wasn't meant to be him. So if he hits somebody else, it's all right.
Yeah,
Um, and it's a sort of differential, in between people who are in the game and civilians, as it were. And it kind of struck me in the same way that people sort of, try and um, to quantify. It just reminded me of the Yorkshire Ripper. Very different here, but he's attacking prostitutes, and the police don't really act. And then when he attacks what they call a normal
yeah,
woman, suddenly there's outrage.
yeah,
As if
exactly.
these people's lives are only worth a fraction of what a normal person is. And it's the same with these kids. They're just kids. They should be looked after. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. Hi, my name is John. His name is Andy. It's that summer of the evening. Get ready and roll the cassette. There's boys outside preaching genocide and trying to think of some sort of threat. More on that later. But first, Andy, what have you got in your sack of delights today,
Well,
music-wise?
yeah, of course, of course. I keep the other sack of delights stored away. So I
Different
would
channel, different times.
like I would like to have you check out a song called King Park, and it is by a band called La Dispute. So, I don't know, have you ever heard of La Dispute? Sounds like
A
no. All right.
dispute.
Well, fair. Well, please, brace yourself. I know these are interesting waters that you often tread into when I give you some of this post-hardcore stuff. Sometimes it's really successful with you. Sometimes you just can't shake the sort of vocal delivery or style of that. But I would like you to give this a check
Uh-oh.
nonetheless. Brace yourself, my friend. Brace yourself for La Dispute and their track King Park.
Okay. That start there, just like for a second, the second half, it almost sounded like Buzzcocks. Um, to my natural emotion.
Another shooting on the southeast side. This is drive-by midday outside of the bus stop. By Fuller and Franklin are near there, not far from the park. About a block from where the other shooting was last month. Or was it last week? Shots were fired from an SUV heading northbound eastbound. A target arrival, but they didn't hit the target this time. They hit a kid with it, had nothing to do with it, and I traveled backwards through time and space and
Oh, that was interesting. It sounds like it's almost like a reportage. I think I got another shooting at the southeast side, a drive-by. I know something about it coming from a SUV, um, targeting a rival, but instead they hit a kid who apparently had nothing to do with it. This is quite a common story for the people who live around the areas where it happens quite often. I have to say, in the UK, it's still quite a relatively rare event, so much so that it becomes national news rather than daily wallpaper of life that it can be in certain areas. Yeah, and so it's an interesting way of doing it. The music's, fairly sort of energetic and driving. It's guitar and drums and bass. Sounds decent. And your man is reporting all this like some sort of local TV newsman. in the middle of a hurricane, apparently, and that's why he's having to screech like a banshee. Yeah, not my favourite sort of delivery. And they just sort of went a bit funny there. Let me just go back a touch.
This time, they hit a kid with it, get nothing to do with it, and I travel backwards through time and space, and I disintegrate, become invisible. I wanna see it where I couldn't when it happened.
It's interesting.
I wanna see it all firsthand this time. I wanna know what it felt like. So I float behind police lines, reconstruct the scene in fragments of memories. I wanna know what his mother looked like up close. I wanna see her leaning over his body. So I float there, transcend time. I wanna capture it accurately. I wanna know what the color of the blood was, spilling out from the tarp onto the concrete. I wanna write it all down so I can always remember. If you can see it up close, how could you ever forget how senseless death, how precious life? I wanna be there when the bullet hit.
Yeah, interesting. I really like the music in this section here. It's almost quite funky. We got that sort of frog scraper going away. There's a really nice beat, and the guitar sounds lovely. Yeah, drum and bass working together as well. Yeah, awesome. So he's traveling back through time and space. I just got the image of like the titles to Time Tunnel. Um, and it's kind of almost there's this floating eye reporting. And he's going through the details, but it sounds like it's to document it and understand rather than to exploit. So about the mother and how she feels, and the detail of the color of the blood. I think running on concrete, was it, from the tarpaulin? Yeah, and then it says about this senseless death. I guess trying to make some sort of sense where there is no sense to be made. But yeah, interesting, thoughtful.
And the crowd poured out as the shots dropped.
So it just struck me. This is kind of like I hate to say this, but it's kind of like a Stairway to Heaven of post-hardcore, isn't it? And you got this little sort of guitar bit there.
Into siren sounds out of their houses now and over front yards, all the way up to the place where the police tape ran to mark the crime scene. Everybody trying to catch a glimpse of what was happening, of what was going on between the ambulance and all the cop cars. Everybody gossiping, whose kid got hit, where did hit him, and who could have fired it. Everybody wondering, how did it happen again, and is he dead? These children
Liking the drums
are
here.
kids. Everybody wondering how far they were from where the victims live, and I visit them, their houses. Inside my dream I visit them, my spirit soaring high and high up over King Park, leaves the crime scene, travels further back till far before the shooting. Through their windows to their living rooms, I see them younger this time, playing games and doing homework. All these marks of you.
Sorry, but that section there is really interesting. So he's gone from micro, focusing on the details and minutiae of the crime scene, as it were, and the impact that has, to then the sort of almost macro view of the community and neighborhood around, the people stopping to gawp at it and gossip and to not know the kid and who is it, etc. And then he's pulling out again, sort of like this mind's eye drone floating over houses and then going in through the windows. It's really interesting imagery. It's done really well, actually. The narration to this is superb, and the music picked up pace as well. I love the drumming for that section. It's really sort of just pop in, great.
So transform coldly into stone for fights and stupid feuds, for ruins wrapped in gold, and cruelly I recall why I have come to find the reason. But there cannot be a reason, not for death, not like this, not like this. days later, they made funeral plans. The family.
Collective.
3 days later, a mother had to bury her son. Not far away, the shooter holed up in a hotel near to the highway with a friend and the gun. That same gun.
Sorry, I'll try not to interrupt, but that was nice. That's again that reflective part with the guitar, and then it just the almost mundaneness of there's a woman's got the mother's got to bury her son, but the impact of that. And then we go to this bit, and we're now turning our focus towards the shooter, the perpetrator, and the beat ticking away like a timepiece, indicating I think it's probably a matter of time for him, or time is running out. Interesting.
He fled immediately, but was identified by witnesses. His picture on TV, only 20 years old, they called him Grandpa. He was older than the others by a year, maybe two, and he was safe for a while until somebody saw him there and notified the authorities who surrounded the hotel, first arresting an accomplice while attempting to flee, then chasing him up the staircase to the floor where he'd stay. He closed the door hard behind him, locked himself in the room. They could have kicked in the door, but knew the gun was still with him, one he'd already used, and so they feared what he'd do. I floated up through the window of the room to the west. I hovered out to the hallway, tried to listen in. I heard them trying to reason, get him to open the door. His uncle begging and pleading, half collapsed to the floor. He preached of hope and forgiveness, said there is always a chance to rectify what you've taken, make your peace in the world. I thought to slip through the door, I could have entered the room. I felt the burden of murder and shook the earth to the core. Felt like the world was collapsing, then we heard him speak. Can I still get into heaven if I kill myself? Can I still get into heaven if I kill myself? Can I ever be forgiven cause I killed that kid? It was an accident, I swear it wasn't meant for him. And if I turn it on me, if I even it out, can I still get it, or will they send me to hell? Can I still get into heaven if I kill myself? I left the hotel behind, so let me know how it ends.
Wow, that was just slamming the book shut there, wasn't it? I think you said I leave the hotel because I don't not want to know how it ends. Yeah, it's interesting, this sort of like climax here with this shooter asking if he can still get into heaven if he kills himself. Oh, dearie me. Yeah, this is quite some sort of little drama here. It'd be interesting to find out if it's based on anything or not. Some of the delivery in this isn't to my taste, but I got caught up in it, and so it didn't really matter that much to me. Some of the music in this was really nice and really well done. So yeah, really interesting. So we need to find out a lot more about this. Let's go back and chop it up with Andy.
All right, so you are back from your trip to King Park. I'm sure it was an interesting one, given the lyrical content of this track. Please tell me your thoughts on it.
So my first thoughts was seeing the band name on the YouTube video. I wondered if it was actually LA Dispute, like an early pilot show of LA Law, but no, obviously not. And then I thought, call yourself a La Dispute. Yeah, okay. So this starts with a hop and a skip from the drums, and then these upfront guitars. And actually, for about 1.25 seconds, it sounds like Buzzcocks at the start of Ever Fallen in Love. And then, but then there's a bass note comes in, which sort of drops it down like half a tone, and sounds always completely shrugs off that impression. Does sound very good, energetic, and very direct. So in comes your man, the vocalist. It seems he is delivering some reportage. The events, from what I can make out, is at the beginning is this: another shooting on the southeast side. This is a drive-by. This is something else. I guess that the southeast side will have some meaning depending on the location. Like the southeast side of Croydon, not so much. But yeah, familiar story, and more so for the people who live in the areas where this happens. I know these sort of events, particularly like drive-bys shootings, do happen in the UK, but they are so rare that they become national stories on the
Right.
news rather than just the everyday wallpaper of life that is for the people in those areas. I caught something about a rival target, but they hit a kid, which had nothing to do with whatever nonsense these idiots use to justify their actions. And all of this is done in the style of a local TV reporter on the scene of apparently an approaching hurricane. So the singer seemingly screeching into the howling wind. Yeah, not my favourite style of delivery. But then the storm seems to pass. The singer then reconstructs the events by traveling backwards in time and space. At this moment, I get a mental image of the classic TV series Time Tunnel, with silhouetted bodies and flailing limbs against a swirling 60s kaleidoscope background. You know it if you've seen it. Anyway, the music settles down. And it settles down to sort of back him. And he does change tack. He goes down from screech to sort of, different delivery style. And he declares that he wants to see it firsthand this time as it happened. So it's quite trippy concept going on here, this sort of mind's eye floating drone type time traveling thing. It's really interesting. But the music to this, it's got such a lovely beat, the rhythm section to this section of the song, complete with frog scraper. It's almost like strange that they chose that. It's really nice, don't get me wrong. I really, really like the music here. And it's accompanied by this melodic guitar that has an element of kind of reflection within the tone of it.
Yes.
Not necessarily of the melody, but it's just the tone. Really, really nice. So he floats between the sort of behind the police lines. There's this mind's eye. It would have been, back in the day. Now we'd associate it with a drone. But it takes us via the astral plane, this sort of out of body experience. And it is really vivid. But the nice thing about this is not exploitative. It's not ghoulish. He almost endeavors to document this tragedy. The colour of the blood, the reaction of the mother, all these details and minutiae of another senseless death. It's really interesting. And then we get another change of gear, more narrative than actual sort of fact finding. And we go from this micro examination of the crime scene to a macro picture of the neighborhood and the community. So the rubberneckers, the crowds gathering, the speculation and gossip, etc., which is all rings very true, as far as I would picture it, not being in that scenario. The singer then visits them in their houses, and he mentioned King Park, which I guess is an area from a real area. Really cinematic description of soaring over the houses and through the windows into their homes. The drums at this point are superb. They add real sort of pop to the rhythm of it, and just really adds to the song. As he mentions going back in time, and the scenarios in their homes, the word homework, the heavier sound kicks in with these kids. He searches for a reason, but his voice was going towards screechy again, but it kind of breaks as he realizes that he can't find a reason where a reason doesn't exist. Now, in this, I have to say, Stairway to Heaven of post-hardcore, we get another mini break with a bit of like complaints, Jimmy Page guitar and a bit of navel gazing. And then we go back to the mundaneness of funeral plans and a mother burying her son. And then we switches again and we focus on the shooter story now. And as we go to this section of it, the beat from the drummer ticks like a clock, suggesting either, time is running. He's on the clock, as in time is running out for him now, or it is only a matter of time before his eventual end. He's holed up and hiding, and they say about the absurdity of a nickname, Grandpa, for someone who's 20 years old.
Yeah.
But such is the sort of the youthful nature of these people that get involved in this. We've seen clockers, that sort of shit. A guitar enters like a police siren, again to indicate its final minutes, and the music ramps up slowly as the tension builds. And while the police are trying to negotiate through a locked door, a reporter floats up, again drone-like, to witness the standoff. And the tension grows as the killer pleads various sort of variations on "Can I still get to heaven if I kill myself?" Which is ridiculous. The idea of somebody being able to kill someone else as a drive-by, probably someone they don't even know, but then worrying about his the state of his immortal soul or whatever
Yeah.
shit you believe in is absolutely ridiculous. And then our reporter sort of turns away. I think he says something about he left the hotel. He doesn't want to know how it ends, and it just stops really abruptly. It sounds like a book being slammed shut. So yeah, this was excellent storytelling. The narrative drive of this and the way it was done, I really enjoyed. And this was quite a sort of literative sort of tale. Musically, really enjoyed it as well. Particularly the drums, I thought were just excellent. My only gripe is the sort of screechy voice, but I was so invested. I didn't enjoy it at the start, but I was so invested when it returned briefly. I let it slide because I was enjoying it so much. This is a real song to make you think as well, but it was done in such a way that it wasn't, shock horror or whatever. It wasn't trying to make it all, chic or fashionable. There was enough sort of like outrage and questioning to it that without being all hands wringing as well. So yeah, really enjoyed this. It's great.
Yeah, man. I'm so glad that you found it in you to enjoy it, despite, that little qualm with the voice at points in the song, because other points, yes, it's revved up and it sounds emotional, but it's not as loud and abrasive as when it really reaches its apex, and yet somehow, because of the subject matter, it almost seems justified in reaching that fevered pitch, if you will, and that you did absorb it for all the goddamn storytelling is 10 out of 10 in this track. And really boils down to why I brought it at this stage is because we literally just talked about we did the episode devoted to The Way, a completely different style of song, but a completely different genre. Came out decades, or at least a decade before it, if not more. And they employed the same method of being inspired to write a song by what is in the news. And while the outcome of the story covered in The Way by Fastball ended up being tragic, the writer didn't know it at the time when he was creating his narrative. This, there's tragedy stacked on tragedy in this kind of story, which, as you put it, that's usually how these things go in areas affected by things like gun violence and, gangs and violence and all that stuff. So, yeah, I wanted to bring more serious side to that same approach to being inspired to write a song that we talked about, which is ripping things out of the tabloids.
Sorry, Andy. I was just scouring my. I've got quite a few books in here, but shit, it's not in there, and I can't remember the guy's name. But there's a book by I've got another pile of books in the next room. It's in there somewhere. I can't remember the author's name. It's John something. But he writes about this area, this street, really nicely done. And the opening chapter is basically the wind coming into town and exploring the sort of alleyways and the buildings and
Mhm.
stuff. And it kind of, the way he's floating and viewing stuff, it reminded me of that as well. It's just a really
Yeah.
nice
Yeah, I
literary
could see that.
technique. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So yeah, they are an American post-hardcore band from Grand Rapids, Michigan, formed in 2004. The current lineup is vocalist Jordan Dreyer, drummer Brad Vanderloot, guitarist Chad Morgan Sterenberg, guitarist Corey Stroffolino, and bass guitarist Adam Vass, or Vase. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, or Vass maybe. Um, the band's name is from the Pierre de Marival work from 1744 of the same name. It was a play that Dreyer watched while in high school and felt parallels between the work and the music that he was writing at the time. Jordan Dreyer, the band's singer, has commented on the use of tags to describe the band's style, saying, "In general, I think boxing art into categories only serves as a way to exclude people from exploring different variations of the same thing. I think the only real definition between artists exists in their intentions for creating art." But despite this, La Dispute is described as playing, and this is an interesting hodgepodge here, jazz, blues, and spoken word influenced post-hardcore, which incorporates elements which range through screamo, progressive rock, post-rock, and hardcore punk. While recognized elements of La Dispute's music are incorporating spoken word style passages into intense songs that use highly complex lyrics and Dreyer's versatile control of his voice, able to swap between singing and screaming to correspond and complement the emotion of the music and the lyrics. The band's instrumentation is seen as near shoegaze guitar drones that complemented the distorted bass, and this couples with their music being like confessional diary entries, spoken and shouted word lyrics accompanied by minor chord harmonies. The band is said to be influenced by a broad range of music, and as individuals, they possess different influences. Post-hardcore bands like Thursday, Refused, At the Drive-In, and Glassjaw are just some examples of commonalities amongst the band. Writing a tribute to Me Without You upon the band's retirement, Dreyer wrote that La Dispute might never have been a band without Me Without You, and that he especially was influenced by singer Aaron Wise's stage presence. Drummer Brad Vanderloot has said that the band, with each record, takes influences from other artists and musicians who are pushing the envelope and challenging themselves. Vanderloot personally cites his influences from blues and jazz musicians. Dreyer has stated that his lyrical influences are derived from fiction writers rather than from poetry, as he likes to approach writing through stories and different characters, particularly citing Kurt Vonnegut and Vladimir Nabokov as literary influences. The band released their debut EP, Vancouver, in 2006 on Friction Records, and then temporarily signed to Forest Life Records, where they released Here Here, spelled the two differently, like here and here, and Untitled 7-inch in May 2008. Their debut album, Somewhere at the Bottom of the River Between Vega and Altair, was released in conjunction with Here Here 2 on No Sleep Records in November of 2008. Here Here 3 in 2009, The Worth of the World in 2010, and Never Come Undone in 2011, then followed before releasing their second studio album, Wildlife, which came out in 2011. Their third studio album, Rooms of the House, was released in March of 2014. Panorama, their fourth studio album, was released in 2019, almost exactly 5 years later. Their fifth studio album, No One Was Driving the Car, was released on September 5th of this year. The track I had you listen to today features on the band's 2011 album, Wildlife. On September 30th, La Dispute joined Thrice, Moving Mountains, and Oh Brother on a tour around the United States in promotion of the album, which finished in on November 11th. Throughout 2012, La Dispute embarked on a series of headlining tours, which acted as further promotion for Wildlife, with tour legs in Europe, Australia, and North America, respectively. Lyrically, Jordan Dreyer has described the album as being set up as a collection of sort of stories or poems annotated by the author and split into thematic sections by 4 monologues. Dreyer considers the album a lyrical experiment with elements they intended to use actually in their first album. Wildlife showed a lighter approach to music compared to both their debut album and mini album, combining elements from both the split albums they wrote with Touche Amore and Koji, respectively. Wildlife was written differently in comparison to the band's previous work, as the lyrics and concept were written before the music. The album's lyrics follow a loosely thematic collection of short stories, examining the life struggles that shape and define us as individuals. The band drew inspiration from real issues and true stories that they themselves had confronted or heard of in their hometown of Grand Rapids. A primary example of this is the track King Park, which focuses on the story of an inner-city drive-by shooting. The band was noted for combining the energetic dynamics of hardcore punk with the introspective elements of emo and focusing on simpler chord progressions. So let's jump into these lyrics. I'll try to give them my best. There are a lot of them. Another shooting on the southeast side. This is a drive-by, midday. Outside of the bus stop by Fuller and Franklin. Or near there, not far from the park. About a block from where the other shooting was last month. Or was it last week? Shots were fired from an SUV heading northbound, east town. The target, a rival, but they didn't hit the target this time. They hit a kid we think had nothing to do with it. And I travel backwards through time and space, and I disintegrate, become invisible. I want to see it, where I couldn't when it happened. I want to see it all firsthand this time. I want to know what it felt like, so I float behind police lines, reconstruct the scene in fragments of memories. I want to know what his mother looked like up close. I want to see her leaning over his body. So I float there, transcend time. I want to capture it accurately. I want to know what the color of the blood was, spilling out from the tarp onto the concrete. I want to write it all down so I can always remember. If you could see it up close, how could you ever forget? How senseless death, how precious life. I want to be there when the bullet hit. And the crowd poured out as the shots drowned into siren sounds. Out of their houses, now and over front yards, all the way up to the place where the police tape ran to mark the crime scene. Everybody trying to catch a glimpse of what was happening, of what was going on between the ambulance and all the cop cars. Everybody gossiping, whose kid got hit, where did it hit him, and who could have fired it. Everybody wondering, how did it happen again? And is he dead? These children, our kids. Everybody wondering how far they were from where the victims lived. And I visit them, their houses, inside my dream. I visit them, my spirit soaring high and high up over King Park, leaves the crime scene, travels further back, till far beyond the shooting, through their windows, to their living rooms. I see them young this time, playing games and doing homework. All these marks of youth soon transformed coldly into stone. For fights and stupid feuds, for ruins wrapped in gold, and cruelly I recall where I have come to find a reason, but there cannot be a reason, not for death, not like this, not like this. 3 days later, they made funeral plans. The family, 3 days later, a mother had to bury her son. Not far away, the shooter holed up in a hotel, near to the highway, with a friend and the gun, the same gun. He'd fled immediately, but was identified by witnesses. His picture on TV, only 20 years old. They called him Grandpa. He was older than the others by a year, maybe two, and he was safe for a while until somebody saw him there and notified the authorities who surrounded the hotel, first arresting an accomplice while attempting to flee, then chasing him up the staircase to the floor where he'd stayed. He closed the door hard behind him, locked himself in the room. They could have kicked in the door, but knew the gun was still with him. One he'd already used, and so they feared he'd do what he'd do. I floated up through the window of a room to the west. I hovered out to the hallway, tried to listen in. I heard them trying to reason, get him to open the door. His uncle, begging and pleading, half collapsed to the floor. He preached of hope and forgiveness, said there is always a chance to rectify what you've taken. Make your peace in the world. I thought to slip through the door. I could have entered the room. I felt the burden of murder. It shook the earth to the core. Felt the world was collapsing. Then we heard him speak. Can I still get into heaven if I kill myself? Can I still get into heaven if I kill myself? Can I ever be forgiven? 'Cause I killed that kid. It was an accident. I swear it wasn't meant for him. And if I turn it on me, if I even it out, can I still get in, or will they send me to hell? Can I still get into heaven if I kill myself? I left the hotel behind. Don't want to know how it ends. So the story really unfolds in three major parts. You have the shooting, the grief, and then the guilt. And throughout each part of the music and Dreyer's deliveries changes to adapt to the emotional gravity unfolding. In a deep dive review of the track for Medium, David Ferrara would write, "How can someone tell a story and give it the right emotional weight? When I heard La Dispute's song named King Part, I felt that it wasn't just a song. It was an attempt to convey something else, not just a series of emotions or a simple message. There is no moral of the story in this song, but there are two people, David and Kyle. The song is about a drive-by shooting in Grand Rapids. A 20-year-old named Kyle Keenan shot a 16-year-old named David Witherspoon. Kyle was trying to shoot someone from a rival gang, one of David's friends, when they got off the bus. David was walking with his friends, then shots were fired, and the one bullet that hit someone hit David, who had nothing to do with the gangs." So yeah, there you have it. Another really tragic story. As you said, they're just kids. I mean, calling someone grandpa because he's a year and a half older is absolutely fucking absurd, but only serves to underscore the youth and naivety and boneheadedness of these kids and these kind of actions. But go ahead, John. It looked like you had something to say.
Yeah, a few things on that. Just to expand on that is that film Clockers, Spike Lee film, and it's just the cynical use of kids, shorties as they call them,
Yeah.
to run their drugs for them, etc. So it always boils down to drugs and money,
Yeah.
which equals power, in the absence of anything else like integrity or character. It reminded me also. I've just remembered that book I was talking about. The author's called John McGregor, and the book is "If No One Speaks of Remarkable Things."
Mm,
It doesn't. It's not the same as this at all, but it's really not. It's really nicely written. If you fancy a decent read, it's very
Yeah.
interesting, and it's different as well. But anyway, I won't go into that. The other thing is the way the approach and the justification. Um, it was an accident. It wasn't meant to be him. So if he hits somebody else, it's all right.
Yeah.
And it's a sort of differential, in between people who are in the game and civilians, as it were. And it kind of struck me in the same way that people sort of, try and um, to quantify. It just reminded me of the Yorkshire Ripper. Very different here, but he's attacking prostitutes, and the police don't really act. And then when he attacks what they call a normal
Yeah.
woman, suddenly there's outrage.
Yeah.
As if these people's lives are only worth a fraction of what a normal person is. And it's the same with these kids. They're just kids. They should be looked after. But if he'd have shot the other kid on the bus, it wouldn't have been such a fuss as a civilian. And
Yeah.
it's just measuring up people's lives or quantifying them that they're worth more than those, puts them in these situations as well.
Exactly. It's that kind of mindset that lands them exactly where the fuck they are, where they make these kind of mistakes. You're right. It also reminds me a lot of something that you and I originally, when we first started talking outside of music, one of the first things that we connected over was our love for The Wire. And as a Baltimore native, born here, lives here, and I love it. I really do. For all of its, blemishes it has, there are some amazing people. And I think the show actually illustrates that really well too at points.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's something that could have easily happened during the peak of what the period that was being depicted in the Wire, which is the late 90s and early 2000s when the heroin epidemic was going on and everything like that. It still somehow strikes a nerve with me when I turn on the evening news. There are stories that I mean are cut and paste from the same shit. So yeah, it definitely hit home with me when I heard it the first time, and the eloquence and tact and just strategy of writing this song from a lyrical standpoint is astounding. And then you couple it with some really beautiful guitar work, and it just all for me. I don't even think about how his voice sounds. In fact, I think it's kind of it's not always warranted in music or in this genre, but for me, it adds to the frustration and the boiling point moment. Things like this stir in people emotionally. So, yeah, I really liked this song a lot and was glad that you did as well and absorbed it in a similar way that I did when I first listened to it. So, thanks for giving it a go, John. I really appreciate it, man.
My pleasure.
Excellent, excellent. Well, guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you think of this track King Park by Law Dispute. If there's anything else by these guys we should check out, I'm pretty familiar with their stuff. I'm sure John is not. So if you have any suggestions, feel free to hit them in the comments field below, and we will add it to the ever-growing list for our Friday episodes dedicated to songs recommended by you guys out there in the listening audience. Also, please like, share, and or subscribe if you haven't done any of all those things. We really appreciate it. And hopefully John and I will see all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of The Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.